Under the weight of war, a new cross is raised every day. Hundreds of kilometers away from home, in foreign lands, the pain of a nation is manifested in each burial. In this video, we will delve into a delicate and urgent topic, the fate of Americans who lost their lives in Ukraine, and the unique challenges surrounding their burials. Hello, War Knorte fighters. In today's video, we will talk about a subject that has become taboo until now, which is the number of American casualties, and those from other countries that have provided volunteers to the Legion, or are actually mercenaries who are dying in the war in Ukraine.
The
issue has already caught the attention of the international press. CNN did a report and estimated some quite low numbers, mentioning 20 in recent months, but we know that the number is much higher than that, based on some names we know who have actually died, fallen in combat in Ukraine, but are not appearing in the reports. Today we will also address the issue of families, which is a very serious problem. That is the repatriation of bodies. Sometimes the body is in a region difficult to recover. There are difficulties in identifying it. In short, it is a very big drama that will surely haunt American society and other countries in the coming years. Stay with us. The presence of American military personnel in Ukraine, even if not officially fighting on the front lines, is a complex reality. Approximately dozens of Americans have already lost their lives, motivated by various reasons, from humanitarian missions to security operations. The regions where Americans are operating vary, and their missions range from logistical support to military training. Describing the logistical difficulties of transporting the bodies to the United States is essential. In a war zone with so many restrictions, every movement is a challenge. The costs involved in repatriating the bodies and conducting funerals are extremely high, placing an additional burden on the families. Furthermore, legal and bureaucratic issues complicate the process even more. The identification of the bodies and communication with the families are painful and complex steps that require care and precision.
The
biggest problem for people who die in the Ukraine war, for foreigners, is the situation their families are left in, because it is very difficult to obtain compensation from the Ukrainian government. Additionally, there are legal formalities in obtaining documents proving that the person has died, so that all matters of succession, inheritance, etc. can be regularized. A serious problem that families have also faced is the issue of harassment on social media, because there are people who are against American involvement in the war, and when they find out that a family member has died in combat, they harass the families with insults, etc. This is also a very serious problem that further aggravates the pain of grieving families. And we need to remember that it is not only Americans who are dying in the war in Ukraine. A large number of Colombians, French, British, people from Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are reported, and a very large participation of Latin Americans, mainly Colombians, and many Brazilians who are known to have died in Ukraine and remained there in unknown graves. Well, here we see it's interesting the paradox, right? Because, for example, we saw the report from American CNN, which says that American fighters are dying in Ukraine in increasing numbers and bringing their bodies home is a complex task. But let's take a look at the approach in Portuguese. They already put it differently. This is CNN from Portugal, where they state that there are foreigners being killed by Russia in the name of Ukraine. So you see that the press presents the news one way to one audience and another way to a different audience. Colonel McGregor already said a few months ago that over 400 Americans have died fighting for Ukraine. I don't doubt that number. Why? Because the number of Ukrainian casualties is around 1 million. So it's difficult in this context, in this whole universe, not to have about 400 Americans. We need to remember that the United States was the country that practically intervened the most in this war, either directly or indirectly. So it's to be expected that American involvement is quite significant. Now, we have a problem, right? That concentration of Russian artillery doesn't distinguish in the trench whether you're American, Ukrainian, or German.
Se você é americano, ucraniano ou alemão. A granada caiu ali, você vai morrer. Então é de se
The grenade fell there, you're going to die. So it's to be assumed that this number from Colonel McGregor is quite substantial. But let's take a look at some other reports that are quite interesting regarding American casualties in this war. Well, this is the first case, General Anthony Potts. He died in a mysterious aircraft accident in the United States. It wasn't explained. He was supposedly piloting the plane. A very strange situation, right after the war started, but it's not just him. Then there's this general here. He's from the Marine Corps, General William Mullen, and he was in Ukraine shortly before he was in Ukraine. Then he was found dead on an American base. But it doesn't stop there.
morto numa base americana, mas não para por aí. Esse caso aqui é interessante, a imprensa logo correu para...
This case here is interesting. The press quickly rushed to debunk it, but it was a Polish general, actively involved in NATO, relatively young, in his early 50s, and it is alleged that he died in Belgium, without explaining the reasons for his death. There was this French general here, 75 years old, who supposedly died while climbing a mountain in France. Well, those are the generals. There are other cases out there that you will find. If you look, you will find people who died in this helicopter, one who dies in an accident in Iraq. So all quite suspicious deaths. And generally these deaths happen a few days or weeks after some major Russian missile attack in Ukraine. So they are quite suspicious. Probably these people were fighting or advising in Ukraine. You can't trust these versions from the press.
E outra, não dá mais para confiar nessas versões da imprensa, né? Mesmo a imprensa que dizia que a Rússia estava ficando sem munição, os russos...
Even the press wanted to say that Russia was running out of ammunition, that the Russians were using refrigerator chips. All that nonsense. We completely lost credibility. So what we effectively have is this: a very large number of foreigners dying in Ukraine, including some general officers. We reported 4 more, things that must have gone under the radar. And besides the generals, you have intermediate officers, you have sergeants, you have soldiers too, people without previous military experience. I say that Ukraine, based on the idea the press sold in the early days, was a simple safari to kill Russian soldiers. Russians would be incompetent, you would go there, you would become a hero, able to post on social media, etc. People started believing in it, and some did not have the adventure of returning. So that's the situation. In Brazil, we also have several young people who ended up going to the war in Ukraine. Some died. A very large number of Brazilians died. If you search on social media, you will find it. So that's the situation. Now it has leaked. It has already reached the mainstream media. They no longer hide it. They can no longer hide it. Something we've been talking about for almost 3 years here on the Arte da Guerra channel. We need to remember that this February, on February 24th, if nothing happens, if Trump doesn't manage to stop the war, by then, the war will enter its 4th year. So it's really a huge tragedy that's involving the whole world. So that was our video for today. Comment on what you think, how many Americans you think have died, what the situation is, if you would go to the war in Ukraine, if you think it's a big nonsense. It's important to know your opinion about this war. Give your like, share, and help the growth of our channel. Anyone who wants to contribute with pics, it's here in the description. Thank you, everyone. Well, folks, I wanted to share something very important with you. The channel Arte da Guerra, in partnership with the channel Geosmart News, will hold a webinar this February about the strong men of the Middle East. Who are these people?
Sobre os homens fortes do Oriente Médio. Quem são essas pessoas? Homens como Ariel Sharon, Saddam Hussein.
Men like Ariel Sharon, Saddam Hussein, Hafez Assad, who was Bashar's father, and Erdogan. All of this is essential for you to understand one of the most important regions in the world. First, because it is the birthplace of major religions, and second, due to its economic importance, as they are major oil producers. What happens in the Middle East ends up influencing the streets all over the world. So, I invite you. I will leave the intro now. Registrations are already open. The link will be here in the description. You need to know the School of Courses from the Arte da Guerra channel. I am one of the instructors. Albert Cabaye is too. The course will take place now in February, and I look forward to seeing you at the webinar, The Strong Men of the Middle East. See you later, everyone.
Até mais, pessoal.
Music, music.